Did you know that if a pregnant woman suffers organ damage
Uh-huh.
let's say she experiences a minor heart attack, the fetus she's carrying will literally send its own stem cells across the placenta to migrate to her heart and repair the tissue,
Yeah, it's a biological phenomenon called fetal maternal microchimerism.
which is just a huge word for something completely magical.
Right. I mean, it means long before a baby ever takes its first breath, there is this literal cellular exchange happening. These two beings are actively rebuilding each other.
You aren't just, growing a baby. That baby is actively preserving you.
Exactly. It completely upends how we usually think about relationship building.
Oh, absolutely.
Normally, you meet a stranger, you exchange names, and you slowly construct a bridge between two separate lives. But the biological and psychological reality of a mother and child, it doesn't begin with a meeting.
It begins with a recognition.
Yes, a deep systemic recognition.
So if you are listening right now, we know you. You're someone who wants the actual mechanics behind the magic.
You don't just want the platitudes.
Right. You don't just want to be told that a mother's bond is special. You want to know the how and the why beneath it all. So today, our mission for this deep dive is to explore the profound, ancient, and honestly biologically complex architecture of the bond between a mother and child.
It's a huge topic.
It is. And we're going to trace this chronologically. We'll start from the radical physiological terraforming of the mother's body, then move into the invisible neurobiological communication that wires a human brain.
Which is fascinating, by the way.
Totally. And finally, we'll explore how this bond fundamentally rewires our understanding of time itself.
And we are going to look really closely at the rigorous developmental science and immunology here. I mean, this isn't about sentimental poetry.
No.
We are looking at a relationship that literally dictates the survival and neurological baseline of the entire human species.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the physical reality of pregnancy, which is often framed culturally as a kind of vessel situation.
The incubator myth?
Yeah, exactly. The mother is just the container, but biologically, the mother's body is the first cosmos. It is an active, terraformed world.
Terraformed is exactly the right word for it. The sheer scale of biological reorganization is, well, it's staggering.
Give us a sense of that scale.
Okay, so to accommodate new life, a mother's blood volume increases by up to 50%.
50% more blood. Just think about that.
Right, and her heart literally physically enlarges and shifts its position in the chest cavity to pump all that extra fluid.
Wow.
Her rib cage expands, her internal organs are pushed aside, like literally compacted to make room for the uterus.
Which brings up this massive biological paradox that I've always found baffling.
The immune system.
Yes. If you look at the human immune system, its entire job, its fundamental programming, is to relentlessly seek out and destroy foreign entities. It is an aggressive defense mechanism.
Takes no prisoners.
Right. And a fetus shares 50% of its DNA with the father. So biologically speaking, the fetus is a foreign graft.
Technically, yes.
So why doesn't the mother's immune system just attack it? People always say the immune system, learns to love the baby. But that sounds like a fairy tale. How does that actually work mechanically?
It's a brilliant piece of evolutionary engineering, honestly. The placenta acts as an incredibly sophisticated immunological cloaking device.
But like an actual cloaking device?
Basically, yeah. The cells on the outer layer of the placenta, the trophoblasts, they don't express the normal identification proteins that our immune system uses to flag foreign invaders.
Okay, so they're flying under the radar.
Exactly. Instead, they express this unique protein called HLA-G.
And what does HLA-G do exactly?
It essentially acts as a molecular do not disturb sign.
I love that.
Yeah, when the mother's natural killer cells and T cells patrol the area, the HLA-G proteins bind to their receptors and actively deactivate them.
That is wild.
But it goes even deeper than that. The mother's body dramatically upregulates what are called regulatory T cells.
Yeah.
Instead of attacking, these specialized cells migrate to the lining of the uterus and actively suppress the immune response in that specific local area. They create a zone of absolute immunological tolerance.
So it's not a sacrifice or a failure of the immune system.
Not at all.
It's a highly coordinated, active expansion. The mother's body is fundamentally rewriting its own defense codes to make room for more love, basically, to embrace what is biologically other.
What's fascinating here is how this physiological expansion sets the perfect stage for the psychological bond. The child developing in that environment isn't passive.
Right, they're taking it all in.
Exactly. By the third trimester, the fetus is actively listening. They are learning the mother's specific biological rhythms.
Like our heartbeat.
Her heartbeat, her muffled voice, the cadence of her breathing, that specific acoustic thud of that enlarged heart, that heartbeat, is the baseline metronome for the child's developing brain.
So when birth happens, it isn't two strangers meeting under harsh hospital lights.
No, it's a highly calibrated organism returning to the only biological signature it has ever known. It's warmth held inside warmth.
It's a relationship that recognizes itself. And it exhales like, there you are,
Precisely.
which forces us to look at what happens the moment that physical environment ends. I mean, medicine cuts the physical umbilical cord. The baby is out in the open air.
The physical connection is severed.
Right. So if that's gone, how exactly does the attunement survive out here in the real world?
Well, there is this concept of an invisible cord, a silver thread, of knowing that outlasts the physical tissue. And this is where we see some incredibly intense, almost telepathic-seeming behaviors between mothers and newborns.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
Because I've heard stories about mothers waking up out of a dead sleep moments before their babies start crying in the next room.
Yep.
Or feeling a sudden, inexplicable physical shift when their child is in distress.
It's very common.
But it sounds highly pseudoscientific, like we're venturing into magic rather than biology.
Yeah, I get that. It sounds like magic, but it's actually hyper-calibrated biological surveillance.
Surveillance.
Yeah, you have to look at how the brain functions as a predictive inference machine. A mother's brain, which is completely flooded with oxytocin and changes in the amygdala during pregnancy, becomes hyper-vigilant to her specific infant.
So she isn't reading the baby's mind.
No, her brain has built a highly accurate internal model of the baby's digestive cycles, sleep rhythms, and metabolic needs.
Wow. So she's basically running a background simulation of the baby's biology at all times.
Precisely. Her brain subconsciously predicts the exact moment of hunger. Combine that with circadian rhythm synchronization, where the mother's and baby's sleep cycles begin to physically align, and her extreme sensitivity to microshifts in the room's acoustics.
Oh, so she hears something before the cry.
Right. She wakes up 2 minutes before the cry because her brain registered a subtle shift in the baby's breathing pattern that a normal person wouldn't even consciously hear.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. It's not a magical cord. It's a deeply entrenched neurobiological tether.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the language before language. Because before a child can understand a single spoken word of English, they are fluent in the register of the mother. Her gaze, her touch, and her tone.
And those three elements, they aren't just about comfort. They are the actual data inputs required to organize the infant's raw nervous system.
Let's break that down. Let's look at touch.
Okay, so when a mother holds her baby and applies gentle rhythmic pressure to the back, it activates specialized nerve fibers in the baby's skin called C-tactile efferents.
C-tactile efferents, what do those do?
They send signals directly to the emotional processing centers of the baby's brain. They completely bypass the analytical areas.
So it's an immediate physical reaction.
Immediate. It triggers a drop in cortisol, the stress hormone, and a huge spike in oxytocin. It literally signals to the infant's autonomic nervous system, you are safe, downregulate your heart rate, slow your breathing.
And what about the tone of voice? Because we all intuitively talk to babies in that higher-pitched sing-song voice. Is there an actual and mechanical reason for that?
Absolutely. That specific cadence is known as infant-directed speech, or motherese, and it's acoustically designed to capture the infant's attention.
Right.
But it also stimulates the baby's vagus nerve, which connects the brain to the heart and the digestive system.
That's incredible.
The warmth pressed into those sound waves is literally a biological trigger that optimizes the baby's heart rate variability.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So if I'm understanding this correctly, we aren't just talking about the mechanics of soothing a fussy newborn here.
No, it's much bigger.
This pre-verbal exchange, the C-tactile activation, the vagal nerve stimulation, this is literally teaching a brand new, completely chaotic nervous system what safety feels like.
Yes.
Meaning every single spoken word, every relationship that child forms decades later is built on top of this initial neurological architecture.
That is exactly it. That is the crucial why behind early developmental science. It is a whole body, whole nervous system communication. The mother is writing the baseline code for the child's emotional regulation. If an infant is consistently met with a regulated gaze and a soothing tone, their brain wires itself to believe the world is fundamentally safe.
And responsive.
Right. That early attunement dictates their capacity to trust and form healthy attachments for the rest of their human life.
I want to try out an analogy here. Because people often describe this connection as the braided roots of a tree.
Which is a lovely image.
It is, but to me it sounds a bit passive, like a greeting card. What you're describing sounds more like two tuning forks.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like if you take a tuning fork that is perfectly calibrated and strike it, and then put near a second tuning fork that is completely still, the sound waves will actually cause the second fork to start vibrating at the exact same frequency.
But that is a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
The mother's regulated nervous system is the struck tuning fork, and the infant's chaotic nervous system learns how to resonate at the frequency of safe just by being near her.
Yes. It is an active transmission of regulation. The mother loans her prefrontal cortex and her regulatory capacity to the infant until the infant's brain can grow the neural pathways to do it themselves.
But, okay, we have to ground this in reality for a minute.
Fair enough.
Because we've just been all this time establishing this perfect biological and neurological attunement.
Mm-hmm.
But human life is rarely perfect.
Rarely.
What happens when this journey is fractured? I mean, what about the mother who experiences severe postpartum depression and just cannot be that perfectly regulated tuning fork?
Or a premature birth, right?
Exactly. Where the baby is immediately taken to an NICU and that physical skin-to-skin connection is interrupted by incubators and medical tape.
It's a vital reality check. Not all journeys begin with ease. Some begin in the trauma of an unchosen separation, or they unfold across the fracture lines of illness, or just deep, deep exhaustion.
So how does the bond survive that kind of interference?
It survives because of biological resilience and the concept of repair. Right. The nervous system doesn't require a 100% perfect environment. It requires good enough consistency and the active repair of ruptures.
So it's not ruined if it's not perfect right away.
Not at all. Even if a baby spends their first month in an NICU, the moment they finally hear their mother's specific voice or smell the unique olfactory signature of her skin, their brain recognizes that baseline.
Because it learned it in the womb.
Exactly. The original knowing remains deeply encoded, just waiting to be activated.
That's like bedrock beneath an earthquake.
Yeah,
The surface might be completely chaotic, but the foundation is still there.
that's a great way to put it.
And this brings up one of the most unexpected dynamics in this whole deep dive. We spend all our time focusing on how the mother regulates the child. But if you look at the physiological feedback loops, children actually mother their mothers too.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes the entire narrative of parenting as a one-way sacrifice. It is a deeply symbiotic ecosystem. Think about the mother functioning on 2 hours of sleep, experiencing massive cortisol spikes, physically depleted.
Just completely running on empty.
Right. And then her baby looks at her and smiles or coos. It isn't just cute. It triggers a massive dopamine and oxytocin release in the mother's brain.
So the baby is essentially administering a neurological intervention.
Exactly. That baby's smile activates the maternal reward circuits in the brain so powerfully that it actively overrides the fatigue and stress.
That is amazing.
The infant's absolute trust and physical need call forward a biological well of strength the mother couldn't access on her own. The child's cues are a biological lifeline thrown back to the mother to keep her neurological head above water.
It is absolute natural reciprocity. Like those two trees planted close together, they don't grow at the same pace, but eventually their roots do braid together in the dark soil. They are engaged in a continuous bidirectional loop of physiological regulation.
They really are.
Which explains why repairing a fractured relationship between a mother and an adult child is arguably some of the deepest healing available to a human being.
Oh, without a doubt.
When that relationship repairs, even decades later, even imperfectly, it reaches all the way back to that first world. It rewires the nervous system at the most foundational level.
Because you are dealing with the original architect of your emotional brain.
This profound biological permanence brings us to how we define time. Because if this bond, if these bidirectional feedback loops are actually built into our cellular and neurological structures, we have to completely rethink our vocabulary.
Words like eternally and forever.
Yes.
Right. Culturally, we tend to treat eternally as a promise about the future, or something esoteric that happens after death.
Like a spiritual concept.
Exactly. But if you look at the biology we've discussed today, specifically that fetal-maternal microchimerism from the beginning eternally is a literal physical description of the present moment.
Because the cells are literally still there.
Exactly. The moment the mother first held the child she grew, That moment became a permanent architectural change in both of their bodies.
The baby's stem cells are integrated into the mother's heart.
Her liver, her brain, and the mother's antibodies and cellular markers are integrated into the child. Nothing can ever unhappen it.
Wow.
Eternally just means the biological and emotional imprint is not contingent on time. It is a permanent structural reality.
I am marveling at this reframing because it forces us to look at forever in a completely new light, too.
How so?
Well, we usually think of forever as a passive span of time,
Yeah.
like a fairy tale ending where two people walk off into the sunset and forever just happens to them automatically.
Right, happily ever after.
But looking at the neurobiology, forever is an action verb. It is an active practice. It's a love that keeps finding its way back to itself across all seasons.
This raises an important question for anyone listening. How do you practice forever? Because in a neurological sense, it's the active choosing, again and again, to return to the baseline calibration. Through the ordinary, chaotic days, through the massive misunderstandings, through the ways mothers and children accidentally hurt each other as they grow into separate individuals.
Forever is the phone call you make on a Tuesday for absolutely no reason.
Exactly.
It's the meal you prepare just because you know their specific preferences. It's sitting in a shared silence.
And crucially, it is extending forgiveness not because the problem is perfectly resolved or the trauma is entirely erased, but because you are choosing to activate that underlying thread of connection. You are choosing to return to that first breath of recognition, overriding the surface level fracture.
So what does this all mean? If you take all these rigorous developmental concepts, the placental cloaking, the C-tactile nerve fibers, the predictive brain states, and the microchimerism, and you distill it all down,
What do you get?
it means the mother-child connection is the first love. It is the deepest knowing. It is the bond before all bonds, written into our blood and our brain stems. It is a biological infrastructure wide enough to hold absolutely everything and deep enough to reach what cannot even be named.
And at the very core of all of this complexity, the biological and psychological reality of this bond boils down to three simple truths. Still here, still warm, still true.
Here.
Yeah.
Still warm, still true. I love that.
It really sums it all up.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day. Think back to where we started. The idea of a relationship being a structural imprint rather than a social agreement. If your mother's body was literally your first ecosystem, and if her specific touch and tone wrote the original baseline code for your nervous system's understanding of safety, how is that ancient pre-verbal memory secretly dictating the ways you seek out trust, affection, and warmth in every single other relationship you are building today?
It is the invisible blueprint you carry into every room and every interaction of your adult life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you carry this new perspective with you, and maybe take a moment today to look at the invisible architecture in your own life. Until next time.